So what I have here is another lens, another new lens made by the Light Lens Lab. This particular one, it's a prototype, so this, well, again, this is not a final version here. So I guess there will be a lot of minor changes to be made for this lens. This is another replica of a Leica lens. This is supposedly to be an Elcan 50f2. Now, I've been using it for quite, well, a few weeks now. Okay, to cut the story short, I was not that impressed compared to when I first tried the 8 elements, because well, this guy here, it just feels good. The quality, the build quality, the rendering, everything is just according to my expectation. Versus this guy here, now to be all fair and square here, I do not have an actual real Elcan lens. It's way too expensive. I didn't know exactly what to expect of this lens. For my personal use, I'm not too crazy about a standard lens, 50mm, because I do prefer the 35 for the street photography. This is a small lens, just like, well, I wouldn't say just like, it's identical. The overall dimension of the lens is identical to the 8 elements. This is a brass version, and f2, that's the largest f point that I would go, or I could go. If it goes any larger than the f2, I will have, well, normally I have this really huge failure rate. So personally, I prefer the f2, 50mm, because of the focal length. I thought I would have a hard time using it because well, frankly, I am not familiar with this particular focal length. But to my surprise, after using it for a couple of days, I got used to it fairly quickly. Okay, in terms of the rendering wise, it's not as saturated as the 8 elements. It is different. It's pretty obvious that these two lenses they render differently. For this guy here, it feels kind of shallow. Not necessarily means it's desaturated. It just feels not as thick or as rich compared to the 8 elements. Any decent lens, if it's in focus, it will be sharp. So let's not get into how sharp it is, because I feel it's just pointless. At wide open, the 4 corners are pretty soft. I take that as a advantage, really. The reason being, it makes the subject slightly, it pops out. Maybe you might consider that to be a slight cheating, but nonetheless, I don't mind having the 4 corners to be soft. The 4 corners are still somewhat soft if you stop it down all the way to f4, but it's not that noticeable. So I guess what I could say about this lens is it's not too good if you are into landscape photography, basically requiring like corner to corner sharpness. I didn't test it at f8 because I feel it's pointless. If you stop down all the way to f8, I would say every lens, more or less, they all render more or less the same. I use at f2 and also at 4. Well, I'm not saying this is a bad lens, I'm just not familiar with it at the same time. I don't know what to expect of a from an Elcan lens, even though this is a prototype, because I know nothing about the Elcan, the original Elcan lens. I tried to look it up in terms of the image samples up in the internet. I couldn't find that many photo samples, well, in terms of the street photography wise. It's only fair to look at this lens as a separate lens, as a standalone lens. After all, this is a prototype. In terms of the actual quality wise, the final version, for example, this guy here, there's 8 elements in brass. This is solid, and I mean it weighs a lot heftier compared to this this prototyping. I think it's some kind of a metal alloy. I'm not saying this is bad quality. All I'm saying is this guy feels a lot sturdier, chunkier, you know, even though these two are more or less the same size. As a matter of fact, I have ordered one in brass version, you know, which is, you know, this guy here, this color. Yeah, it's kind of, well, gold. It's kind of cheesy, but I already have this titanium grayish. So you know, I'm curious what it would look like for the brass. According to the Light Lens Lab, they said the lens could oxidize, and that is what I want to see. I'm not sure the oxidation would obstruct the smoothness of this lens barrel. I mean, this lens has been around for what, a year or so now. I still, like, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Everything is still smooth. So well, I guess like my friend, you know, Jeffo, he hasn't been using this lens that much. Basically, this is the reason why I have ordered the one that I've ordered. It's a brass. I'm just curious what it would look like after, you know, me using it and abusing it. A couple of things about this this prototype here. You know, it has a knob for adjusting the aperture value. It's good to have it, but like, it's really not that big of a deal for me. What is a big deal is I just realized that how much I enjoy using this. Well, this finger rest does make focusing a lot easier, even though, you know, I would spend most of the time just zone focusing. I would use the lens in f4, about like 4 meter pre-focus. That should cover like 80% of the time. But then again, once in a while, you know, I would see something really interesting across the road. I would have to switch it to 10 meter, for example, and that's when this little thing, this finger rest, comes in handy. Unlike the 8 Summicron, the 8 elements here, this prototype has no locking mechanism in this finger rest, which is good. I do not like, let me repeat myself, I do not like having a lock. I just don't like it. Alright, it is what it is. But then again, this is only a prototype. I have no idea what the original Elcan lens looked like. I don't know whether it has this little knob thingy. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the Elcan, it's a military grade. So basically, the lens itself is dust proof, and the glass they use, I'm not sure if it's radioactive or not, but it has to be some kind of a rare earth glass to make it that much higher resolution wise. I don't know if this prototype is weatherproof. I guess only time will tell. And I am pretty sure the glass it uses is not radioactive. Initially, I was thinking about comparing this lens with the Leica 50 f2, the dual range, But then somebody asked me how this lens fare against the Japanese-made Voigtlander. So I thought like, oh, you know, that might be a better comparison between the two. So I've decided to use this Voigtlander. This is a Japanese-made Voigtlander. This is a Helia Classic 50 f2. This is a limited edition lens. It came with the camera body, the R3M, as a package deal. I liked it. This is a really good lens. The quality, well, it's still pretty darn solid. Everything is smooth. It feels really hefty. Compared to these two, I would say like they are comparable in terms of the weight-wise. Okay, the size is very similar, both 50 mm, both f2. So I'm guessing this will be a closer comparison to this guy, to this prototype Elcan. Between these two here, I guess like I'm being really biased, you know, feel free to disagree with me. I think this guy renders better image than this. Yeah, I'm surprised myself. I thought it would be similar, but like it's not. It's quite, okay, I wouldn't say like it's noticeable. The reason being, it's really have to use these lenses in conjunction to one another in order to tell the difference, because you know, if you just look at it, just look at the photos itself, it's really difficult to say, you know, which is which. I find the Elcan lens to be slightly more penetrating than the Voigtlander Helia. Maybe, just maybe, this is what they meant by higher resolution. Who knows? Well, just look at this picture here. It's pretty smoky, and the rendering is fairly clear. And the shot is taken at a wide open f2. Speaking of wide open, at f2, the bokeh or the bokeh, it's pretty decent with this Elcan lens. Like I said earlier, I shot these images either at f2 wide open or at f4. And then f4, I prefer the bokeh rendered by the Elcan prototype more so than the Voigtlander. And at f2, the Elcan has a nice, soft, subtle glow. So this is why I think the Elcan is actually better than the Voigtlander. This is a really biased opinion. The reason being, it's, you know, the differences between these two lenses are really subtle, and you really have to put the shots taken by these lenses side by side in order to tell the difference. Otherwise, it's not that obvious. I mean, in all honesty, all standard lenses are good regardless of the brand. So unless you're in the market to get a standard lens, there's absolutely no reason for you to go out and get this Elcan. But then again, if you are like me, curious about the Elcan lenses, this might be the lens to try out. So even though this is a prototype lens, I don't think there's going to be a much difference with the final product. And of course, I will make another new video once I have received the final Elcan from the Light Lens Lab. So until then, stay tuned guys. Now before I sign off, I'm going to leave you guys with these images taken, you know, between the Voigtlander and the Elcan. See if you guys could tell which is which. Alright guys, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.